Alright, so this presentation is about how to change your identity. This will involve, actually let's go to the introduction. This will involve like how to start the medical process, some other things that are outside of the medical process that also help you change your identity in like the physical manner. I will also cover some legal manners such as name change, document changes, changing the sex that's listed on your driver's license, stuff like that. The main part of this will be the medical journey, like going through hormones, starting puberty blockers, the surgery. This includes top surgery and bottom surgery, and other points along the way that I think are worth mentioning. And then at the end, I will get into tips and questions. Now, a short introduction of who I am. My name is Jordan Dutcher, and that is what I looked like in my homecoming freshman year. I was a shy, I was angry. I was very angry. I could not stand how I looked. It was miserable. And here's a picture of last weekend at my prom. My journey through transitioning has been incredibly helpful. There has not been something more special and just beneficial to my life than transitioning. I have been on hormones for 2-ish years, and the journey began in my freshman year, towards the latter half of the year. I learned it at the beginning of that year, but I was still making sure that this was something I really wanted to do. I currently have bottom surgery scheduled for over the summer, and I am currently trying to legally change my name, although that one's kind of out of my hands, as you have to go through a whole bunch of different processes. Now, the first step of this whole process is learning what you want. This includes doing research safely, talking to other queer people, and generally just like looking deep into yourself and learning what you want to look like, how you want to express yourself, everything like that. This is a picture of when most people start having these thoughts. This is around people your age, my age, stuff like that. Typically around 12 to 18 is when most people figure it out. Some earlier, many also later, but this is around the age when most people figure it out. The next part is learning what's safe. This is probably the most serious and special part of this. Sadly, in the world today, there are many things that are not safe about transitioning. Many people will want to hurt you or argue with you about this process. And this may be a bit controversial, but I believe even if you have to wait a little bit, you should put off the process if you are in a dangerous situation. There is nothing worth risking your own safety. You can always begin the process later, and with little to no risks or things lost in the process. Other things that involve being safe: have a backup plan. Talk to other people. If suddenly your parents or where you're staying is compromised, as suddenly they just get really angry with you, have a place to stay. Talk with friends, know their family.
Buses will be leaving in about 1 minute. Buses will be leaving in about a minute.
Talk with your uncles, aunts, stuff like that. And generally just have a support network. This process can be very emotionally draining. Have people you can talk to. Now, many of you probably know what this is: dysphoria. It is generally the feeling of hating how you are expressing your body and just who you are. It is awful, and even after 4 years of transitioning to medically, I still go through this every single day. In the morning, I will spend about an hour just going through clothes after clothes trying to find something. It's a shitty situation, but after a while, it does get better. Now, before I get into the surgical methods, there are some other practical methods that are often cheaper. This includes things like binders, packers, medical tape, and tuck kits. The easiest one to get out of all of these is medical tape. Medical tape can be used to bind or anything. It can be used in almost any situation, and I find it incredibly helpful personally. And many of these things, especially binders, can be expensive. And if you are in a situation where you can't order that as people monitor your online shopping, I recommend going through a friend. I have bought binders for other people. It is something I believe people should do for each other. We're all in a community. I recommend doing it. And also do research. There are many different things. Find out whatever works for you. There is no set method to this. Now here's like actually starting the journey. First thing I would do, find out your insurance plan. Your insurance will be a very important thing for all this, as it will involve how much this will actually cost you or your guardians. This is an expensive process. Just a couple weeks ago, I got an implant in my arm. That implant was $22,000. Without insurance, I would have had to pay for that all myself. Luckily, my mom's a teacher, I have the insurance to pay for it. There are other ways around this. There are coupon codes you can find online. That sounds a bit weird as it is a surgical process, but there are codes online that typically go through grants or other foundations that will help you pay for that stuff. Now, the first thing is you have to find a therapist. This therapist will be with you for the rest of this process, and this isn't something you should skimp out on. You should find someone you could actually talk to and not shy anything back from. And after you find a therapist, you will typically be prescribed pretty quickly with dysphoria. It's not too hard of something to be diagnosed with. It doesn't take too long. And after that, you can schedule an appointment with a hormone specialist if that's the path you wish to take. The closest place around here is the Susquehanna Family Practice. I have personally gone through them, and they have been relatively helpful in the whole thing. There have been some mix-ups, but I'll get into that later on. Onto these appointments. These will be, typically, I got my appointment around 6 months after starting therapy, and it was about a 2-ish hour long appointment. These first appointments you will have will involve mainly paperwork. There's a lot of stuff you gotta sign. There's a lot of side effects you have to know, and they're gonna ask you a lot of questions, and these will be very invasive. And if it's a good doctor, they will ask your parents to leave the room, or your guardians, but sometimes they won't. But still, you need to be completely honest with these people. They are prescribing you medicine. They need to know everything about you to do that. But if there is a situation, always talk to your doctor. They have patient confidentiality. They cannot share what you tell them with other people. And this first appointment will just be that paperwork. They will talk about the journey. I recommend keeping like a notepad of everything they talk about, as they will say a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. It can be very overwhelming. And they will also probably want you to get blood work. That will continue on. You'll be getting blood work constantly. The follow-up appointments, it took me around 2 appointments with Susquehanna Family Practice to actually start getting put on any puberty blockers. And also, you'll have to share with them your letter of diagnosis, but that is not that hard. It'll go straight through your therapist. All that work will be done without your intervention. Puberty blockers. There are 3 forms of puberty blockers. They all involve Lupron. Those are shots, implants, and pills. Pills sound like the best option. Sadly, however, they are not available in most cases. The pills you would be taking every single day, but for some reason they've never been available during my process. I don't know why. Most of these are around the same price as they all are Lupron, but despite that, I personally use shots and implants. During my first year, I started doing shots. It's around 3 months. These are painful shots. They are typically done around the upper thigh, and it's not the best, but whatever. Every 3 months you have to do it. It's pretty easy. And then after a while, they'll transition you into having implants put in your arm every year. I have one in my arm. I just recently got it put back in. It's a simple process. They just have you put on a painkiller, and you don't feel a thing. Now, there are a lot of side effects and costs to these things. like I said before, the implant is pricey. It's $22,000. If you don't have good insurance to cover that, I recommend doing alternate methods or simply putting it off. $22,000 is a lot of money. You don't want to just have that immediately on you before, in my cases, you don't even have a job or way to pay for it. And side effects on this I will get to later on, but it's pretty bad. And additionally, puberty blockers are a bit controversial, as many people say they're used for sex offenders to treat them. That's just not true. Like, I did a lot of research on this. It's not true. It was used in like one study in 2018 where they treated, I think, a total of like 34 people with it. And when people bring that up, just completely disregard them. It doesn't make any sense. Now, the puberty blockers you will typically take until you decide to stop taking them altogether or have permanent surgery. I'll get to that later. Puberty blockers are also, despite many people saying, they are completely safe in many regards. If for any reason, it's pretty rare that this happens, you decide to stop transitioning, you can be taken off of puberty blockers and there will only be some side effects, most not permanent, but that's it. Like, there are no issues with stopping puberty blockers. Now, after a short while on puberty blockers, you will be allowed to take hormones. This will require another note from your therapist, but a lot of these in-betweens will be covered in all of these appointments. Again, I stress, take notes of everything they say. After these appointments, I recommend like talking to the doctor and asking them, hey, what do I need to do before my next appointment? It's a long, tedious process. You need to keep track of that stuff. Now, these hormones I started about a year after being on puberty blockers, and you will begin at a lower dose. I start at 1 milligram of estradiol, and you'll gradually work up to an adult dose, which is 6 milligrams. And you'll be taking that, it's a pill every single day. There are other forms. The most seen is typically shots, although that is more common for testosterone, but still I haven't seen many like people younger than 18 who use the shots, but it is a thing that happens. Now, you will probably be on these hormones the rest of your life. That's not a bad thing though. They say that in the appointment like it's a scary thing. It literally is just, for me, it's 3 tablets, take in the morning, cup of water, that's it. Like, I don't know why they made such a big deal out of it, but anyways, after being on these hormones for 3 months, you will start noticing some differences. Like the effects that you want from these hormones will actually start. I'll get into that a bit later on. And the effects of these hormones would typically peak around 2 years after taking them. This is not certain, this is just something I was told, and it seems to be mostly true, in my opinion. Now, the most prominent feature of hormones, that be estradiol or testosterone, is the redistribution of fat. That will shift, like, for me, I had more fat on like my arms and bottom of my legs. That was redistributed to like chest and hips. It will just shift around, same thing, but like kind of opposite will happen with testosterone. They'll get more into that in the specifics. I'm not a doctor. I don't know all these things. Now, while being on hormones, for the first year, you'll typically require a lot of blood tests, and that's pretty much it. I'll get more into the requirements and recommendations for all these shots and everything later on. Now, there are a lot of side effects to both of these medications. Firstly, Lupron. Lupron for me was awful. I hated taking it. The shot was fine, but the side effects were awful. Like, the first one they'll really stress to you is the chance of infertility. That one is not that much of a hurdle to get over, as it's only a small chance. This doesn't happen in everyone. The second one is decreased libido. I won't get too much into that for obvious reasons. Then there are the emotional changes. The most prominent is aggression and depression. Like this, it changes your brain. It changes like how it like wires. I was an emotional wreck like when I started taking this. Caden can attest to that. I was crying all the time. I was like hitting the wall. It was awful. It died down after like 3 or so months, and the same thing happened with the effects of hormones, but it was awful. And some other effects of this, like the typical effects, your growth will halt. You will typically not grow much taller than you were. I grew a little bit, but that's because I started taking estrogen and other hormones. For trans men, you will typically, I don't remember the exact stat, but I believe it was after 3 months, you will notice shifts in your period. Typically, like, it'll falter and then it'll just stop completely as your body has stopped producing estrogen. It's just stopped, I guess. There's not much more to say about that. But again, all of these side effects will die down if you stop taking Lupron and decide to reverse. Other effects include loss of strength, hot flashes, and aches, and when you first start, you will have increased production of hormones, your natural body hormones. That will also have to do with the hot flashes and aches. Now, like I said before, the main side effect of taking hormones, either estrogen or testosterone, is the redistribution of weight in your body. Like I said before, it's just going to change how your body looks, shift shoulders, shift hips, stuff like that. And it can also cause you to lose hair or gain hair in some cases. I remember when I first started, I would take a shower and the clumps of my hair were falling out. My hair stopped growing much, like my arm used to be covered in hair, now there's like nothing on it. Stuff like that. It'll also cause you mood swings. It's kind of normal. Your body's completely flip-flopping which hormones you're taking. You're gonna have bad mood swings. I didn't find it to be nearly as bad as when I started taking puberty blockers though, but it's still something significant. Other changes include the changes in skin texture, which I still notice. The main noticeable thing in this is you will be very prone to cuts. I will like bump into a corner and my arm will just like gash open. Last week, I don't even remember how, I was like getting my nails done. I just had this huge cut just all across my hand. And I'd never heard anyone talk about this. Like, it's because your skin is like tightening and or gaining pores. Your skin is changing a lot and you're not growing any new ones. So it's just like making your skin generally a lot weaker. Other changes in this will be breast development. Like I said, most notable after 3 months. That's for estradiol, shifting of features, increasingly changes in libido. This can include increases or decreases in libido. And the worst one, infertility. After taking hormones, you will most likely not be able to reproduce at all. This is a very sad thing, but it's a truth. I will not be able to have kids. That's just a sad truth I'll have to deal with. In the future, there may be a way to get around this, but currently, there's no way. I have been on hormones for 2 years, I'm infertile. It's just a sad truth a lot of trans people have to deal with. That is by far the worst side effect of transitioning, in my opinion. Now, many people actually stop after this step, taking hormones and puberty blockers. They're completely done. They're happy with what they want to do, and that's the point of this. You transition into who you want to be. But for many others, they would like reconstructive surgery. This includes vaginoplasty, phalloplasty, and metoidioplasty, and top surgery. I will mainly be going over vaginoplasty and phalloplasty. However, they have a lot of similarities in the prerequisites to those. I will not be getting into the very specifics as, frankly, I don't think you all want to hear some of the grossness that involves in the actual surgery. Now, when first beginning this process, you need to first inform your doctor of what you want. Tell them the surgery you want and everything else that goes with that. And in most cases, you will need to be 18 to continue forward. I just started this process as I just turned 18. And after this, you'll be given a list of recommended surgeons by your doctor. Around here, there is really only one place where you can have this surgery. That is in New York City. There are other places, but I wouldn't recommend any of them. They're either people who haven't done the surgery for very long, or insurance will not cover these places. And you cannot be paying for the surgery out of they can go as low from $20,000 to $150,000. It's, I'll be honest, can't pay for that. I think that's just too much. And when looking at these surgeons, do your bit of your own research, prioritize expertise, and be patient. I was given a list of 5 surgeons, and many of them, like the time for when I could have the surgery, ranged from around a month or so after their waiting list to about a year. I selected the year one because you can't pick someone who, you want to have someone that has the most experience, and you can't skimp out on surgery. This is a permanent surgery. You don't want anything going wrong here. And then you tell the doctor which surgeon you choose, and you and your doctor will both contact the surgeon and arrange a meeting. This meeting for me was over Zoom. I'd imagine it's going to stay over Zoom as they don't want you driving all the way up to some different place for a 1-hour meeting. This meeting is very important. I would recommend taking notes. I brought my notes app out when I was doing this meeting and just typed up all the stuff they said. This meeting will be with a social worker. You can say anything to them. It is, once again, confidential. The meeting will mainly be about prerequisites. This will be different for a good chunk of people, but the main things will be hair removal. They say being out for 2 years. I don't know how they check that though. That's just what I've been told, but that one's kind of weird. And then paperwork, but they'll do a lot of those things in a follow-up meeting that is typically a month or so before the surgery. I can't talk much about that because I haven't had that. And they will also schedule a rough time for the surgery. And overall, again, it's a personalized meeting. I can't talk too much about this as it will be different for everybody. Now, for hair removal, like I said before, this step is necessary. You will need to, and this isn't like laser hair removal. This is not a one and done process. For me and for most others, it will be 20 different appointments over a long span of time to let the hair grow back out so they can rip it out again. And the 2 options for this, there may be more, but these are just the ones I know of and have learned about through my research, is electrolysis and laser hair removal. I would recommend laser hair removal, but that's not the one I'm doing, as it is less painful. They're both around the same price. I think laser hair removal is a bit more pricey, but electrolysis sucks. I've been doing that for a while. It involves sticking a very hot needle in to wherever the surgery is going on and plucking the hairs out individually, and they have to do this for every single hair, and they have to do 20 different appointments to remove the layers of hair underneath after they regrow. Now, these can get very pricey as insurance does not typically cover it, as they see it as a cosmetic surgery, not a health surgery. It's not too much. The appointments for me are, I believe, $100 each, which is pricey. However, because it's spanned so far apart, it's a lot easier to pay for. And you can also set up a payment plan with the places as they understand this all. And there are actually a lot of available areas around here. I wish I could remember the name of where I go, but there are a good amount of places, especially for laser hair removal. I only know one place for electrolysis though. But still, scheduling them can be tough as you're competing with other people to schedule all these meetings. Yeah, I guess that's about it for that. But also, ask your surgeon if scraping is available. This can happen if you did not get all of those 20 appointments in, as that will take a while, and typically, I was alerted to electrolysis and I needed the hair removal at that meeting, and they assumed I already knew about it and was already going through electrolysis. However, none of my doctors before alerted me to it, so I've been kind of rushing to get all of this electrolysis done. So I will most likely need scraping. That will be the doctor going in there and scraping off my skin and layers of hair at the site of the surgery. Now, the actual surgery. from what I've been told, you will need to stay in the area of the hospital and where you got the surgery done for at least 2 weeks afterwards. However, that can be extended as it is a major surgery. You will not be able to walk for the first week. You'll be laying in bed. Everything will be done for you. Now, the only place available, like I said before, is New York City. It's expensive to live in New York City. In my meeting, they said you can get a hotel room. However, hotel rooms are pricey. Can you work at a hotel? How much is it a night?
For New York City?
Yeah.
Oh boy. If you're staying, well, you have to stay in, I'm assuming you have to stay in Manhattan if you're going to.
You can actually stay
LA
in
or Columbia Hills, right?
Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, or
Yeah,
Staten
so I would say
Island.
probably, I don't know, $350 a night maybe. I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that. Because my hotel around here is like $150 a night on a slow day, and that's in the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah, like I said, hotels are expensive. I would recommend booking an Airbnb. However, due to laws around New York City, it can be pretty complicated. I recommend setting it up with another family to also stay in the Airbnb, as in New York City you have to stay there for an extended amount of time. I am not really sure why this law is put in place, but that's just how it is. Now, you also need someone to take care of you during the surgery. Don't have it be your friend. Don't have it be your partner. Have it be a family member or someone you're extremely close to. It's gonna be gross from what I've learned. You'll be laying in bed, it will be disgusting, you'll be very irritable. It's gonna be an awful week, at least that first week, probably the second as well. You don't wanna harm that relationship with someone else. Now, moving forward after the surgery, there's not much more to talk about with the surgery, as I haven't done it. There's not much really more I can say. That's just the prerequisites and afterwards that I've been told about it. Now, moving on to name change. This is something most people, well, not most, a good amount of people will do if they're transitioning. I have been trying to do this for a while, although it is difficult, as I don't want to pay for it. I just don't. It's not too expensive of a process, but because I know it can be free, I don't want to pay for it. Now, I don't know too much about the sex change. I know oftentimes they would like you to have the surgery prior, although there are ways to get around that, but I don't know them as I haven't done it yet. But for name change, there are different places you can go through. I go through the Name Change Clinic. This is a mostly free place that will hook you up with a lawyer, and pretty much it. You will be hooked up with a lawyer and they will fight to change your name in court. It's an easy process, however, it can take a while, as a lot of people do it. I have been on this list for about a year and nothing has been done still. To be on it, you do need to be either over 18 or under 18, but you will need parents' permission to do so. But in my opinion, you don't need a name change legally. It will make things a lot easier, but I will not rush to get it done. It will be better for going to college and stuff like that, driver's license, things like that, but in my case, if you want something changed, typically the people out of changing it will change it for you. I have had my name in the yearbook changed, my name in the system changed, and everything like that. The college I'm going to changed it. Many people, especially around this area, will be okay with changing your name in the system, as it's, even if they are against it, it's not worth that fight. And if you'd like to write that down, I'll write it down on the board, but to get on this process, you need to email, what was your name? I believe your name was like Patty Noon. That is PNOON@gwcmh.org. I will write that down on the board or give it to you if you ask after the presentation. Now, that is really all I got. That is the process. I can't get into the specifics of it, as it is different for everyone, but there are recommendations I have for along the way. Like I said before, be safe. Do not come out or start the process until you are sure and safe of what you are doing. It can be dangerous in the world, and you can always start the process later when you are all on your own and have that support group built up through friends or family that are cool with that stuff. And I also recommend meeting and talking with other trans people during the process. Just talking with someone who's going through the same things can mean a lot. There is a foundation around here, I believe it's called the Identity Center. I don't remember the exact name, I used to have a business card, but whatever. Where they will hook you up with other trans people and you can talk to them and just like vent, I guess is the best word for it, about what's going on. It's a long process, it's complicated. And I also recommend, like I said before, create an ongoing to-do list, everything you need to get done, like electrolysis, blood work, stuff like that. And after each appointment, also check with the doctor to make sure you're doing everything right. I have missed steps along the process as it is a bit complicated. These can all be typically made up as blood work isn't that hard to get. And I also recommend keeping a folder of all important documents you are given. This will include birth certificates, social security numbers, stuff like that. And try to get everything done before you're cut off of the insurance you have. This can be pricey. I don't want to pay for this. If you have insurance, especially if your parents work for the government or a school, many of this will be paid for. My family has not had to pay for a lot of this as it is covered by insurance. Typical age for insurance cutoff is around 23 or 26. Other recommendations I have, these ones are a bit more personal things I have done, like get a job. This is pricey, you're gonna want some money. And other process I wish I should talk about a bit more is clothes. A big process of transitioning is finding the right clothes for you to wear. Like for me, that's the worst part. I hate it because, I mean, clothes are expensive. Completely switching from all the clothes you used to have to this new person you want to express ends up getting rid of a lot of the stuff you had. You don't want to buy a whole new wardrobe and everything. I recommend using the money from a job, thrifting, or just reuse clothing. I wear my sister, what's the word? Like donates her clothes to me, and so does like my mom. It's cheaper and easier in my opinion. Like I said before, have a support group, long process, you'd like to have someone to talk to around it. And here's kind of a weirder one, but learn how to deal with pain. A lot of this stuff hurts. You'll be getting a lot of shots in places where it hurts to get shots. And I'd learn how to deal with it, especially if you are afraid of needles. I'm very sorry for you. There are a lot of shots you'll have to do, a lot of blood work. It can be tough at points, especially with hair removal, like electrolysis and stuff like that. But I don't really have a lot of tips on how to deal with pain. I'd recommend just looking that up. And like I said before, have a backup plan. If things go south, have a place you can go and have family you can stay with, have friends you can stay with, just that. And then also learn some self-defense. Luckily and hopefully you'll never have to use it or anything, but things can get dangerous. Like people will be jerks. I worked at a grocery store and people will say really nasty things to you, and you just don't want to deal with that. Typically things will never get violent, but just in case, you don't want to get hurt. And this is a weird one. Avoid trans chasers, people who are trying to go for you because of the unique body that trans people typically have. It's just wrong, in my opinion, for those people. I have had experience. Yesterday I posted that picture I had earlier of my freshman year and then my senior year, homecoming and prom pics, and I got messages from a good amount of chasers, and they're disgusting people. Just avoid them. They will treat you like trash, and generally they're just awful. And lastly, and most importantly, always remain hopeful. It's a long process, and at times it can be pretty rough to get to, but you gotta stay hopeful to keep going through it. It's tough, but if you stay positive, it'll be a lot better. And that's pretty much all I got. Does anyone have any questions they'd like me to answer? Yes?
How did you first tell your family that you wanted to be trans?
For me, it took a good amount of time. I didn't tell them for the first couple months. Caden was actually the first person I told. I started with telling my sister and then gradually worked my way up. Sadly, not everyone will accept you. Not in every case. I don't mean to tell that to you specifically, but it will happen. There will be people who will always be there for you, but I have cut family members out of my life due to them not supporting me and constantly being awful towards me. It's a rough situation. Overall, I'd say just try to build that confidence up over a long period of time and then know your situation. Like, test the waters maybe a little bit. Ask them, hey, what do you think of a trans actor or something like that? Just to make sure it's something they're okay with. And I don't know. I guess the baseline is only come out when it's extremely safe. If there is any chance of things going south, wait. Nothing is worth risking for safety. Any other questions? Kate?
I don't have a question. I wanted to stress two things that you said.
Okay.
So, sorry, I know this doesn't really count. It's not my presentation. The biggest thing I wanted to stress was this is a good lesson to have in life. Any place that offers you quick, cheap changes to your body, that's a bad one. Whether we're talking about tattoos, piercings, or in this case, some kind of surgery, you should avoid it. Some place that offers to do something quickly and cheap if it's going to permanently change your body. So I know you can read a lot of stories of people who took an attractive offer to get their bottom surgery done quicker and cheaper and ended up with a mutilation. So, which is pretty disgusting. Don't look that up. But like it's serious that you really should exercise caution in what you're doing there. And the second one is, this is sad also, but definitely the self-defense thing is something that is huge. I don't mean to make this about me. This is my presentation, but I'm cis, and I have had people at my workplace of the hotel come after me for how I look because my ears are pierced and I paint my nails, and I wear a skirt every once in a while, and that has gotten people to try to kill me or maim me or try to jump over the desk to get me or try to the guy who said that I shouldn't be allowed to work in public because of how I look, just stuff like that it sucks and it's tough, but like you really should. Like, it's not fun to be like, oh, I guess I'm going to work with a taser today because somebody's gonna get me, but like you really should like exercise caution in your life. Anyway, so this is back to you.
Caden saying that Caden is not the typical case. You work at a very place that attracts awful people. Works at a hotel.
Someone says not. It's not like
Anyway,
bad. What do you mean?
if you do have any other
garbage hotel.
questions, I'm everywhere around this school. Walk up to me. I'm always willing to answer questions. If you'd like to message me on any social media, there's my stuff up there. But that's pretty much it. I hope I was able to help any of you.